Hello and welcome back to Nordic Masters. I am Joe Larson, joined by Andreas Peterson. We're gonna go down to round 4 of this huge RC qualifier, I guess you could call it.
Yep,
but
for sure.
Also a tournament in its own right. All right.
It looks like we're straight down to the feature match area, Joel.
We are, perfect. All right, so we have Elias Watsfeldt on the right. An old Pro Tour player, a good friend of mine. Been playing for a long time, as far as I can remember, during my years.
And he hasn't aged one day. He looks the same.
He looks exactly the same. It's actually unreal. It's like a elf or something.
Yeah.
He's playing Jeskai control. We have the normal energy package. And we have Phage to kind of win the game. We have the ring to kind of get that card advantage and Kiki-Jiki, etc. And he's playing against Magnus Brandt. Is a Danish player, right?
I would guess so, but I don't actually recognize the player. But he's brought a very cool deck to the table. He's bringing Merfolk. He's basically saying the new printings from Modern Horizons 3, like the Flare of Denial, is enough to make Merfolk a viable deck. We still have the skeletons of, the Mutavals, the Silver Gill Adepts, as we already see, Lord of Atlantis, and the other namesake card, Master of the Pearl Trident. So I'm pretty excited to see how that kind of free interaction from Force and Negation and Flare of Denial line up against the Jeskai deck. Also worth noting is a full playset of Harbinger of the Seas is in the deck, and that may or may not be known information for Elias. So let's see if he plays around it when it comes to, setting up your mana base in the face of a moon effect.
Yeah, for sure. Harbinger of Seas, of course, being the, as you mentioned, Magus of the Moon type of effect. It's a blue version that's also a Merfolk and a Wizard. And instead of turning them into mountains, it turns them into islands. So kind of perfect in this mono blue deck. I mean, obviously, he's not being hurt himself. And there's a lot of, very powerful non-basic lands in this format. There's Amulet, we've seen Titan Breach, we've seen, the 4-color Glimpse deck 2 rounds ago. I think, sometimes you can even punish the Boros deck. It's one thing to play Blood Moon yourself and having some of your non-basics becoming mountains, but having them becoming islands is a different story.
That's definitely a good point. You can catch anybody who's unaware and not careful with Blood Moon. Here we see Tide Shaper, a card that is kind of like Spreading Seas. With the kicker cost, it turns a target land into an island. So Hallowed Fountain does not add white mana anymore, or maybe that's a Meticulous Archive.
I think it's a Meticulous Archive.
All right.
I think that's the Surveil version. I was almost about to say Scry. Sure. I'm so old.
Oh, yes.
Holy shit. Okay, so Elias getting another Surveil land. This time he's going to get a blue and red one at the end of Magnus's turn. I think it's in... there's no real rush for Elias. Magnus doesn't have a huge clock percentage just yet. It's just 3 points of damage, and the creature kind of small, so I think it's again chill a little bit and make sure some of these haymakers doesn't resolve. And I'm talking about Harbinger, for example, of the Tides.
Yep.
And we have this Lord effects that you kind of want to save your removal for, and it's fine to take 3 damage a couple of turn. You have Life Gain from Phage. You have Wrath effects, so you can clean this up later on.
Yep.
So no real rush.
I was about to say the dynamic of how do you play from an aggro perspective against a sweeper can be quite tricky, and Elias is looking for his opponent to either play heavily into the sweeper so he can take advantage, or the other way around, buy so much time because of the threat of the sweeper, and the control deck likes both of those scenarios. So I think that's kind of a key point to how you master playing aggro against sweepers.
Absolutely, and cards like Mutavault definitely helps, because that means you can present more stuff that doesn't die to the sweeper effects in form of damage, while not sacrificing too many cards for your opponent, forcing them to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And if you get too low life totals, you're getting forced kind of to play into it, and if that happens, you can get, punished by a Force of Negation or a Force of Denial.
Yep.
So Elias actually tapping out there. This is scary, because if there's a Harbinger of the Tides here, he's in big trouble. I think.
That's why I alluded to it in the beginning. I wonder if it's known info that Elias is expecting Harbinger to be in a the average Merfolk deck, and I can't really tell.
It's tough to say, right? Maybe he's playing a bunch of Merfolk. I'm sure it's not the most common deck right now. Probably not one of the top 3 or 4 stock decks that you expect to play against. And even if that's the case, maybe Elias doesn't even think about it,
Yeah. It's also possible the hand couldn't play around it. Like, there are a lot of options.
Yeah, for sure. So we see that Magnus is playing, I cannot in the world pronounce his name, but
I think
it's called
Civilin.
Civilin. The sea and sky. All right, so it's actually indestructible as long as you control 2 of the Merfolk, which Civilin does not have currently.
Oh,
but
here
it
we
does...
see with the Flare of Denial. Sorry to interrupt you there, Joel.
No, you're good.
Flare of Denial here taking care of... And now he didn't even see. Was it the One Ring?
I think it was Phage being flashed back, actually, or escaped.
Already up to 5 cards in the yard? Okay, that's cool, because that also explains why Elias went for the double red. And look at this, the Meticulous Archive alongside the Mystigate provided double white, kind of, even though it's just an island.
Yeah, so we see actually the Merfolk deck doing a fine Psychic Frog imitation here with Civilin, because you actually do draw cards when you attack with it. So if you can kind of play permission cards like the Force.
Flare of Denial.
Exactly, or Flare of Denial. You can kind of keep drawing cards and keep up with those permission cards. It's a very powerful engine. So
yeah, this is this is just Psychic Frog and Counterspell, just in a Merfolk shell, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah, for sure. Yeah, super interesting.
Worth noting here is that the next Tidebinder targeted the Mystic Gate to become an island. So the Meticulous Archive is free, but the Mystic Gate is now a basic island, which is smart because Elias does not have access to double white as things stand.
Yeah. It does seem like he has a white mana in his hand. And
right.
I mean, it's smart for Magnus to try to target that because you don't want to get Wrath of the Sky here, right? You don't want your entire board to go away. It does seem like Elias elects to go for a Phage. He does have 2 counterspells in his hand, so very likely that he wants to keep those up, because as the game goes on, it's going to be scary for him to get to use them.
Ooh,
unless...
We see a nice interaction here, Joel.
Yeah, for sure. And this is super smart. So I was going to say that like you want to keep counterspell up, because if you don't use it now, it's going to be harder and harder to use. But getting this extra Phage on the board and countering this ability where it's sacrificed, you actually have something that's, for Merfolk, but it's super hard to kill. I mean, a 6/6, you can't dismember it if you have those in your main deck. You can bounce it. There's some options. You have like Sink into Super and you have Otavara, but it's hard to kill, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And Elias did something super smart where he actually replicated his card to counter the ability, right? Because he's already seen Force of Negation, Flare of Denial, and he has Force of Negation on the other side. So it's super important that because if he gets Flare there, I mean, there's no Phage.
Exactly, and Elias probably couldn't use that extra mana anyway, so it's just good practice. It's a good habit to have to replicate that spell when you don't need the mana. So yeah, very, very cool detail here. It's basically like stifling like Phyrexian Dreadnought, like in Legacy and stuff like that traditionally. Pretty cool interaction here.
Okay, so the old man from 93 comes in and actually delivers a huge blow to Elias, giving all those other Merfolks Island Walk. And Elias has plenty of other islands in play, so he can't actually block this turn. He does remove the Lord of Atlantis this turn with Phage, but I think he's in some amount of trouble. I mean, Magnus is presenting 7 damage on the board. Elias is currently at 8.
Yeah, so it's definitely the race is definitely on here. The life gain from Phage helps immensely. The thing is that Magnus can still play out more Lord of Atlantis type cards because, as I talked about, it's an 8 of in the deck. The Island Walk can be huge. And those counterspells on Elias' side doesn't necessarily dig him out of a hole. They can stem the bleeding, but they don't necessarily dig him out of the hole. So yeah, exciting and very tight game here.
Yeah. So what Magnus is really hoping for to draw here, or this turn, would have been Cavernous Souls. I think that would have ended the game. Yeah. And obviously an insanely powerful card against a deck full of counterspells. It seems like he's gonna like to play his bounce spell as a land untapped.
Taking some more damage here, showing the flexibility of those sink into stupors.
Yep. Alright, so we have a counterspell here for the Lord of Atlantis. Mutavolt kind of messing up his ability to play another lore.
Good point. No quad blue mana, so Hexcatcher It is, and that's also a Lord effect, and that seems to do it.
Yeah, that's exactly 8 damage, and Elias is at 8. I didn't think he had the quadruple blue basically, so he couldn't play both of his counter spells.
Exactly. There. Oh, Elias didn't have. Yes, correct. Because of the white henge.
Exactly.
So yeah, Merfolk gets the job done despite a lot of Flage action from the Jeskai deck. I'm actually pretty surprised about that because Elias got to Flage 2 times, I guess.
Yeah, I think the key point of this game was basically that Elias had a turn or he had a couple of turns setting up. He played a few tap lands. He played draw 1 card to get to energy, and he got his cards into his graveyard. And then when he went to escape Phage, which would be kind of the deal breaker, Magnus had a Flare of Denial, and he had already kind of assembled his board at that point, which means he already had the pressure on, and that left kind of Elias behind the entire game with his permission spells not being optimal at that point. I think you can even see Elias actually boarding counter spells out here because they're kind of terrible when you're behind. They're even worse if your opponent has a Cavern of Souls in play. Then they don't really do anything.
I think exactly the combination of it's pretty steep mana costs, so you can basically hold up 2 mana for nothing. I think they're going to get swapped for Stern Scolding though, which is the same card, just half the price.
I think that's actually in Magnus's deck.
Oh, got it. Okay, so
we're looking at Mystic Dispute, Path to Exile, and Solitude.
Yes, I think, definitely. Oh wow, 4 Solitudes. So Elias' sideboard is really ready to transform into this deck where every card is live against your opponent's deck, right? Really specialized. A lot of anti-creature cards here. And even the Dispute, which is let's say 1 mana version of Counterspell.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Elias is very smart if he picks in the Disputes and the Paths and the Solitudes, because if he can just make his deck super efficient at breaking up the synergy that Magnus has, his deck is not going to be as potent at all, because Magnus is sacrificing a lot of cards to kind of bring this all together, like his Flare Denials. I mean, it's not fantastic that sacrifice creature, that's a 1 for 2, right? You have Force and Negation 1 for 2. So you kind of need to have your synergy and your kind of engine set up to play that game. And if Elias can kind of pick that apart, all of those cards that sacrifices other cards for tempo becomes much worse.
Perfect analysis of how a synergy deck works against a just high card quality control deck trying to pick it apart. And also something cool I thought about was that Merfolk deck, the fact that you can Flare of Denial, that your cards in hand doesn't matter, and you can win the game when the opponent had like 4 or 5 cards. That's when tempo is the name of the game. So I think mastering Merfolk has a lot to do with your ability to capitalize on the tempo and slow down when it's needed. And definitely playing against sweepers can prove those situations. So let's see if it's going to be harder for Magnus after sideboard here.
Yeah, I think Elias's plan is, we mentioned a little bit earlier, but have this like super efficient removals and rely on your powerful engines, which is going to be, of course, the One Ring, as we see everywhere, Phage, and even Fable of Kikijiki.
Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Definitely a bit of an odd addition. It's not in the average Jeskai deck, but Fable of the Mirror Breaker is just, a solid card overall. And sometimes you need the proactive element. Sometimes you need to, fix your hand a little bit. It's great with Flage, discarding it to the second chapter, stuff like that. It does a lot of small things. For sure. Really good card and multi-format all-star.
So here we see probably the best card in Magnus' deck, which is Aethervial on turn 1. It lets him play out of his hand much faster, and it's much easier for him to hold up permission spells, his type of counter spells. When I used to play a bunch of blue-white and stuff, it was interesting. Aethervial was obviously very good, but it had a downside of being like, what if my opponent has enough spot removal? What happens then? Then Aethervial is basically dead. I mean, I think Magnus is very happy about having it, especially on the draw. But it can be a downside once the game has gone on for like a couple of turns.
Great point. It's something that was relevant a long time ago, and now it's relevant again. The fact that if the game drags on, Aethervial is like having one less resource, because it's just a mana source that lets you cheat on mana. But if it's turn 10, then the instant speed has to be very important for it to be good. So for curving out and having the perfect start, the card is awesome. But if this game reaches double-digit turns, not so much. So definitely some diminishing returns on that card, I'll say.
For sure, yeah. And we see actually Tishana's Tiebinder in Magnus's hand, which is a nice card with Edivile. We saw him bring those in from the sideboard, also being Merfolk, which is nice. We see all this just strictly powerful cards being randomly a Merfolk.
That's cool how they design cards these days. Like, okay, we can put some more life into this archetype by changing creature types here and there. Yep. I really like that a lot. And that card is just so flexible. It can do so much stuff.
Okay, so we see a counter on the Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
Yeah.
Using Force of Negation, removing one of those Tishanas because he has a backup copy. Is that the good old Island Moon I'm seeing?
That would be very strong here. It would leave Elias with no red mana basically, and no access to double white.
Yeah, I think this can be big. Yep, there it is.
Harbinger of the Seas hits the battlefield. Pretty interested to see if Elias, because he did prioritize having the planes here. I don't even, maybe he just natural drew it actually. But
yeah, I mean he does have paths now, right? He does have a Solitude in hand also.
So we can answer the card. It doesn't shut down from the Jeskai's player's perspective, but it's kind of annoying that you need to Solitude this early.
No, I agree for sure. It'll be interesting to see when Elias actually elects to deploy his things. I'm not sure whether he suspects another. I mean, he did see from Force of Negation that he did remove one Tishana Tiebinder because that's like a scary thing against Edivile, you know. If your opponent gets to, counter the trigger. Okay, so here we see it, and we actually see him removing
and this is a great point, Joel, because it's exactly the fact that Vile cannot yet put into play uncounterable Tidebinders, Tishana's Tidebinder, because that could stifle the Swords to Plowshares effect on the Solitude. So great awareness here by Elias.
Yeah. What you could have done is maybe respond to the trigger in the upkeep if you want to play around like a Force of Negation, but I think you want your opponent to play Force of Negation when you have Mystical Dispute up. I think that's just another Edivile. So now you're getting punished from Edivile here.
Yeah, I'll say so. Quick point about your upkeep play. That is a good play because Flare of Denial can counter anything, even creatures. So you could potentially bait your opponent into wasting their mana for a turn there if you have the Mystical Dispute as a backup spell. So pretty cool about the timing of your spells. It's all in the details.
For sure. Okay, so we see Elias fetching here in the main phase after playing a Mysticate. It's going to be interesting to see if it tries to bring back Phage, perhaps. I mean, Tishana Tiebinder can kind of counter one of those effects, but there's still a Phage in play, which is a big problem.
Yeah.
Magnus only has one card in hand, and Elias does have a Mystical Dispute, so I think he's just going to run it out here because
he's basically saying if you have that Tiebinder, sure, you counter a Lightning Helix, but you still have this problem to deal with, and it will attack each and every turn. So
absolutely, yeah. All right, so let's see if Magnus is going to go for it. I don't think he will. He just does too little. I don't think he cares about the Helix at this point.
Yep.
He's not at a point where he cares about Elias's life total to the extent where he could counter a Helix.
Right.
Because his deck doesn't have that much reach. I mean, it's about setting up a board and play provision. Okay, so
pretty quick concession here. He sees the writing on the wall, and it makes a lot of sense. We can see no pressure. Flage is about to attack, so pretty bread and butter Jeskai situation here. You kill the key creature, you play your inevitable win con, and that's all she wrote. So textbook from Elias here.
For sure. It's interesting with Tiebinder. I wonder how good it is. I mean, it is nice against the One Ring, right?
Yep. You can turn off the One Ring for good, basically.
Yeah, and that's pretty big. But it's still against a deck that has, like 1 million removal spells.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I'm not sold on it either way.
we can learn as we go here, but my thoughts about it is a card that requires a lot of timing, and if you play against an opponent who has it on their radar, it drops in effectiveness a lot. So as you can see there, Elias did not, he solituded on his own turn, basically made that card a blank. So he has now demonstrated the ability to play well against the card, and I think it drops a lot in strength once that is established. But definitely a very, very flexible card, and going for a good fetch land while attacking the mana with the Tide Shaper, the 1-drop that turns lands into island. Like you can combine for a nice mana denial strategy, and it can be good. With that being said, you also have to cut cards in order to fit it after sideboard. So it's a little bit of give and take here. We will trust the expert who's 3-0 here.
Yeah, for sure. No, he's been doing super well with Merfolk so far, and see if he can pull the last game. What's important for Magnus is that he's on the play against Jeskai in the last match.
Yep.
And we'll see if that is enough or not. But I think Elias, I mean, and that's usually the case. I mean, you're playing a reactive deck against a synergistic deck. You're usually getting a lot better after board, right?
Yep.
Magnus still has to think about how he constructs his deck after sideboard, so he has enough Merfolks to actually do his thing, and while still like trying to figure out what he's going to do against his opponent.
Yep.
What do you think about playing a 1-drop without kickering it here on turn 1?
Ooh, you need a very specific hand, and you need to be able to snowball damage incredibly fast for that to be worth it. So I think Magnus' mindset is here, that's not going to work against the deck with, I don't know, 12 spot removal, 4 sweepers, even Flage. So
sure.
I think he values quality over speed here, but I understand why you consider it. Also, just the fact that disrupting that deck's mana can be good.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's not like Elias is not playing blue mana, you know. It's not that bad that it becomes an island. So
there's something. It becomes a must kill because Elias plays so many double. Wrath of the Sky is double white, Flage is double white and double red. All of that stuff combined, I will say, makes it a must kill in most games.
Sure. Yeah, I was just thinking, if he plays on turn 1, Elias gonna play an island anyway, so it's gonna be a 2/2, and then you can kind of follow that up with like Sylvan Adept. You can play a lot of Atlantis. You can actually have that.
Yeah.
Put pressure on your opponent so your permission spells can actually do something. Because what's extra worse for Magnus post board is that when Elias has so efficient removal, it's hard to put on pressure to get the right tempo into Elias, so your permission spells does what they're supposed to do. You don't want to have a like empty board and then trying to counter Elias's thing. That's not like the path.
Exactly. That's basically what game 1 taught us here. That if Flare of Denial is backed up by a lot of creatures on the board, it's amazing. If not, it's not amazing, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. I wonder if he actually sideboarded some of those out. I mean, Force of Negation and Flare does seem good against Jeskai, but it feels like Elias becomes too efficient. Then again, I mean, Magnus doesn't exactly know that Elias has like 8 1 or 0 mana removals in his sideboard. That's
that is probably not industry standard. That's probably way above average.
Yeah,
but you're definitely right. With the information we have, pitch counters don't seem amazing against the Jeskai deck.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of like Legacy, right?
Oh yeah,
Force of Will gets so much worse post sideboard, especially against the slower decks that doesn't try to do something broken.
Yeah, I definitely want to be the player without Force of Wills in that situation. No, not that many spells are worth 2 for 1-ing, and this could be the case here as well. With that being said, if Magnus just curved out and countered like Wrath of the Skies and killed Elias, he would look like a genius, right? So
yeah, true.
If things line up, those are very strong. But in these like slow and steady games where Elias is still on a healthy life total on turn 3, maybe not so much.
But that's a lesson, maybe. You don't have to look smart as long as you win.
For sure.
That's something you Danes have done for a long time with your Malekith decks.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's true. That is the art of winning without looking particularly smart.
I mean, I don't fault you. There's no upside to winning in the complicated matters when you can do it easy. No, but it's like the thing is also Elias has another edge, I feel like, because for him it's so obvious to take out his own counter spells.
Yeah.
Because your opponent has like Aedavile, cheap creatures, caverns. Yep. It's awful, right? And that means that it's very like comfortable for Elias to play because he doesn't need to get like caught out and holding up a counter spell. Your opponent doesn't play something which you like. Do you care about this? And some awkward stuff can happen sometimes with counter spells, and Elias doesn't have to care about it.
That's actually a good one. That Elias's plan is so straightforward, so he doesn't have like the awkward situations. Should I keep up counter? Should I tap out for something? He kind of eliminates those.
Yeah.
As Harbinger of the Seas has now hit the battlefield, and Elias did a good job of having access to the plains once more. question is, okay, I can't remember if that deck plays 2 planes, actually.
I shall look it up, my friend. He does have 3 planes.
Wow, 3 planes. So
yeah, that's a lot.
The Eagle here being a build-your-own fetch land, which is quite strong when you're fighting moon effects.
Yeah.
Also worth noting is Elias just played out the Sacred Foundry.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe he has another play this turn. I'm not sure.
And maybe this is just respect for the Tidebinder once again. Cycling on your own turn instead of getting stifled on your opponent's turn?
Perhaps. I mean...
Because the second white is so important to get to, probably because of Wrath of the Skies.
Yeah, I'm thinking about whether he was scared about getting it binded into an island, but he already has a basic plans in play, so... Yeah, I'm not sure if that's relevant.
I think just it's the Tishana's Tidebinder that could counter the plane cycling.
Sure, but why didn't he play the planes that he fetched? That's what I'm wondering.
Okay.
Still not playing it.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I guess his Elias is kind of bluffing a bunch of counter spells at this point, because like
they do represent blue mana. That is something that they do right now.
Because he's getting a lot of time, like to do whatever. Magnus has a chock full of hand with like a bunch of lords that sources speed, obviously. So
I think this is end step.
Yep, absolutely.
Which this card is kind of cool. It's kind of a mix between Lord of Atlantis and Curse Catcher in one card.
I think this card is awesome. I remember when it was printed. Okay, I'm like, this is so good. Yeah, this is the type of card I love to play with. Like synergy, but still like permission, flash, you know.
Lots of plays, lots of opportunities to outsmart your opponent.
Yeah. Okay, so we see a Path to Exile in Elias's own end step.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, he does this, I think, in response, perhaps. Not that it matters that much, but he basically just wants to play around the 3 mana counter spells, right?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Elias knows for each turn that passes, he's going to be favored. So you're trying to prolong the game if you're in Elias's seat here. The Merfolk deck is not going to grind you out. The Merfolk deck is going to attack you to death.
This is like a lovely timing too, because now Elias unlocked his lands.
Yeah.
And he's like kind of play land go every turn, not doing anything. And the turn where he can activate his like fetching for a historic card here, is the turn where it paths, right?
Yeah, I like this a lot. Like finding your spot to make this pretty expensive activation and getting your value in here is going to be, that's just
Phage, baby.
Super cool. So did Magnus pass the turn without playing stuff out here?
Yeah, it seems that way.
Okay.
He seems way too scared about Elias having some kind of sweep effect.
Yeah.
And I think this is not going to serve Magnus in a good way, because he kind of needs to put pressure on. He can't just wait here.
Yeah, so he's sitting on a Sink into Stupor, but that's just a minor speed bump. It doesn't take care of anything permanently. It simply delays a certain thing, right?
Yeah, and these are the type of cards that are fantastic when you're playing a tempo deck, but if you're playing a tempo deck, you need to attack with something better than a 1/1.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So let's see what Elias can cook up here. He does have a lot of lands. I mean, Magnus is leading on cards, but the thing is that Elias cards are actually representing more value in cards than Magnus's. So
definitely,
each of those cards are actually, I feel, way more powerful than Magnus can present. So it'll be interesting to see what Elias up to.
We're definitely both favorizing the Jeskai deck at this point of the game. You're not under any threat of dying. You kind of know there's some interaction. Okay, it was a subtlety that I missed in the hand, I guess. Here's Mystical Dispute, incredibly clutch.
Yeah, this is huge. I was just about to say how good this subtlety is. And then, okay, so that was curious. Okay, I don't think Magnus expected Elias to have another mana there for some reason.
No, there's something about...
Maybe he just wanted to tap him out because Phage was going to kill it anyways. I mean, because he doesn't care about like really taking 3 damage from Phage.
Right.
Maybe he just wanted Elias to tap another mana, so in his turn he can do more stuff. That actually makes sense. I mean, honestly,
if you can shut down a card like Counterspell here by
or anything.
Yeah. Okay. Could be worth it. Interesting. I'm very interested to see how he proceeds here, because Phage is just really an uphill battle if left uncontested.
Yeah, I think Magnus just has to wait for that hack step, basically, and then maybe has to bounce it. I mean, but then it just comes down again and kills the Lord of Atlantis. I don't really see a great way for Magnus to progress the game at this point.
No, it's the fact that 3-mana Lightning Helix is not that bad, right? It's not like you're taking Flage out of the equation by bouncing it here. You're just you're making it not exactly end the game, but you're basically drawing out the inevitable by playing like this. Let's see.
All right, so he's gonna counter the ability with the Shana. All right, so this is what he's hoping. I like this a lot. This is basically your only way to win this game, right? That Elias cannot answer the Tidebinder, and it turned into a vanilla 6/6. Yeah, no, absolutely. And even if Elias does kill the Shana Tidebinder, he gets to counter the trigger when attacking, regardless. We're gonna say, however, Elias has another Phage. He has shown this Phage to Magnus. He did pick it up with his land the previous turn.
Yeah, that's true.
With his monumental heritage. I can't remember.
Maybe Henge.
Yeah, that does make a lot more sense. It
so
does look
how
like
does
Henge.
a legendary rule work with Tishana's Tidebinder? It looks like it works still. It's like it remembers its subtypes or whatever. I'm not a judge, unfortunately.
So. Yeah, I mean, the legendary rule doesn't have anything to do with actual abilities of the card. It's just a part of
I should know from, Oko games and stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That was at some dark times.
Oh, yeah.
What's up with this green, blue, one colorless cards? I mean, from my time, what was it? Uro. Before that was Oko.
Yeah.
And now it's been Naru.
Definitely a color combo that has gotten a lot of love and hate, I guess.
It's like BDM has been constructing the cards for the last 10 years.
Maybe he did have a hand in some of them, actually.
Who knows? All right, so Elias got this Shana time off the battlefield. His Phage is online again. He's at comfortable 19 life totals. Minus Brandt, he really needs to find something now. Otherwise, this is not looking fantastic.
No, the Flage is such a good card. It kills stuff. It buffs your life total. It reduces your opponent's life total. Like, what more can you ask?
Yeah. If Magnus, one way out of this could have been that Magnus actually had another Lord. If he would have had...
Oh, to get everybody at 4/4?
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Then he can attack for 4 and hope that Elias doesn't have anything, basically.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's just a house of cards that's waiting to fall over.
Oh, for sure. Basically every card in the Jeskai deck can break up, stuff like this. Here we see a beginning of combat sink into stupor, which is going to be momentarily a good feeling. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. The moment is fleeting very fast because... I think Elias drew a Wrath of the Skies, but I'm not...
Wow, how convenient.
I'm not even sure he has to play it, though. I think he can just play the Phage and kill them all, but...
Yeah, so that's definitely a good point, that if you have a Flage, you basically Lightning Helix one of them away, then you're not that scared about the remaining 2/2.
This is a fantastic answer for Phage in subtlety. However... I don't think Elias cares. I think he's happy about seeing that. I mean, if Phage was escape for him to Torak, I think he would play it, because now he just knows all of the cards in Magnus' hand has, and it's just two basically Lord of Atlantis effects that he knows he can take care of.
Yeah.
So he's put Magnus into a top deck mode here.
Definitely, and this is where the individual card quality of the Merfolk deck comes into play, because if this was reversed, Elias could always draw stuff like, Flage or the One Ring to get back into the game, but the Merfolk deck, playing from low resources, is not ideal.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think some of this, this tough game has been down to the Merfolk player not drawing his card drawing engine, the sea and the sky.
Yeah.
Salem, I can.
Sevelum,
I can.
I
already said that I could never do it, but here I am still trying to do it.
That's okay. We practice here.
All right, Sevelum. All right, no, but I think it's usually important to draw that card because it lets you draw the cards, but especially it gives your Merfolk's ward, so it's hard. But the most important part is that it's a 3/4.
Yeah,
so it doesn't die to Flage.
It's and Galvanic Discharge, unless it has some help from some other energy cards, right? So
that's fair.
It dodges a lot of stuff. But with Elias' sideboard, the chances that any key creature survives are simply just minimal. We could see that with his setup.
Absolutely. So here, Elias is going to take 2 from this Mutavault. I don't think he cares because he has so much incidental light for these flages. And then he's going to sacrifice both fetches to surveil twice. So he fetches once, gets a land, responds on the trigger, fetches again. So 2 surveils are on the stack, basically. And now you can see Elias is just moving super fast because he knows how this game is gonna go, and I mean, Elias is one of those like really fast players.
That makes sense. Like when it's so clear what he has to do, replaying the flage and try and get the job done, he can really turn up the speed, and play speed is a thing when you play paper Magic. You really don't want to get into that unintentional draw bracket. So playing fast and proficient is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, I just recognize this pattern so much. I played with Elias before in both a team GP that we actually came into the finals with, and a nationals team as well. So you can see when it's like activated. It's like,
I remember,
get me out of here. I need to go to the bathroom.
Maybe, did we play you guys in the Swiss or the semifinals? Do you remember?
I think that was the
both. Maybe?
I'm actually thinking of a mod. Oh yeah, we top rated that too. That was another tournament. The modern one. Yeah. No, I remember.
It was trios.
Yes. Yeah, I was thinking of like a really old GP back in Utrecht. It was like, I think it was Gate Crash Limited or something.
Right. Yeah.
Or all free set. No, it was maybe all free set. I can't remember.
But actually, I ended up teaming with Elias for that PT.
Oh, really?
Yeah, me, Thomas, and Elias played on team together on
nice
Pro Tour 25th anniversary. So yeah, super cool guy. He played standard. He was willing to play standard, and here he's willing to extend the handshake because he just won the match.
Yeah, well, very efficiently done with Elias. I think his deck and especially his sideboard was very well set up for this.
It was just so focused on beating creatures as the sideboard.
With that being said, we're going to give it off to the other cast pair. It's going to be Simon and Will coming in the second for round 5.
They're coming in strong.
They're coming in strong at Nordic Masters. So see you guys around. You'll see us back in round 6.
Sounds about right.
Take care. See you then. Bye-bye.